Om Sarvadharmasthapakas Sarvadharmaswarupaka Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. We are studying this Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, fifth part, Master in Divine Mood and Narendranath, and we are reading the appendix or the last chapter, second section. And second section is View of Service at Kashipur. And we have seen almost all of that. One or two important things are remaining in this section. So we come to para 6. How the circle of the would-be monk devotees was formed and how it grew in love and service. So this is the foundation of what we call the Ramakrishna order or the Ramakrishna Math or Ramakrishna mission or Ramakrishna Sangha. So that the foundation is how it was formed and how it grew in love and service. So these two things keep it together. In the absence of any one of them, it will not sustain itself. That is the hint given here. Good arrangements about everything were being gradually made, and all the young devotees, more than the number strictly required for the service, this is a clause redundant or wrong. There was nothing called more than necessary. Everything was necessary. And the necessary, so in the Bengali original, nothing. योग भक्त शकले एखाने एके एके उपस्थित होइलो. All the young devotees here, one by one came. That's all. One by one they gathered there. One by one they increased gradually till it was fulfilled. Please drive out this clause which has become misleading. Is more than the number required for the service. Today you ask in the Ramakrishna mission, we are always short of workers, never more. And all the young devotees came one after another, all one after another. Now how they lived. And it was Narendranath as the leader who made how they should live. Narendra kept them engaged in meditation first, devotional exercises, studies, as important as that, huh? Dhyan, bhajan, pat, holy conversations. That is also very important. They should talk to each other about spiritual life. They should discuss with each other the scriptures. They should discuss with each other what they have understood about spiritual life. It keeps them, the spirit is kept light. Discussions on scriptural topics is separately mentioned. Sadalap is good conversation and Shastra Charcha. So, Sadalap means good talks. Good talks means in relation to their actual life. And separately mentioned is scriptural discussion. Etc. Ityadi. some more things necessary about work and all that, he made arrangement. In such a way that they did not feel how days slipped by. So the whole day is tight, no slackness, nothing tension, nothing more than necessary. But this is an important thing in the Ramakrishna order today also, or anywhere in spiritual life, that the whole day should be a regulated process. There should be no slackness. So they did not feel how days slipped by. So absorbed were they in the great joy of all this. And all this should be done with great joy. That is how Narendra kept them engaged. None of this should be that somehow we are made to do that, somehow we have to do that. This sense should never be there. All this is service to Thakur, all this is for our spiritual benefit, all this is we are together. In this sense, the thing should grow. The pure selfless love of the Master on the one hand, that was continuously there. Pure selfless love of the Master and the wonderful spirit of the friendship of Narendra. And Narendra was not behaving like a boss. Friendship and his noble company. So his presence, his company itself was uplifting. That is called noble. His company is uplifting and friendship. So for the leaders, this is the necessary quality. On the other, united together to bind them in such a sweet and tender yet hard and unbreakable bond. So the bond is hard and unbreakable, but tender and sweet. So rules and regulations will make it hard, but the love makes it tender. And all of them are proceeding to the same ideal. That they actually began to consider one another to be much more intimately related than the people of the same family. So this Ramakrishna Sangha is more than the family. Relations between the members of this Sangha are much more than the house or the family. And that is how they are always together. So much so that if anyone had unluckily to go home on some very urgent business on a certain day, he would invariably come back the same evening or the next morning. So the bond is so much stronger than the family that if he has to go, he comes back pulled by that bond. If not same day, next morning. Although not more than 12 in number, so not more than necessary. Huh? Although not more than 12 in number, all of them who remained there to the end of the Master's mortal life and completed their vow of service by renouncing the world, loved their Guru as dearly as their lives and were wonderfully dexterous in all manner of work. So expert in work and taking Master as the center and loving each other. Now the names are mentioned. I will see. In order to satisfy the curiosity of the reader, the names of those 12 are given below. Narendra, Rakhal, Swami Brahmananda, Babu Ram, Swami Premananda, Niranjan, Niranjanananda, Yogindra, Yogananda, Latu, Adbhutananda, Tarak, Swami Shivananda, Brother Gopal. Brother Gopal means Gopal the elder brother, Gopal Da, who was the only old man among the young devotees. We know that history. It is not mentioned here. Huh? It is mentioned somewhere. That is, Gopal Da was a widow and he went on a pilgrimage. After he come back, he thought that if he distributes the necessary things of a sannyasi to 12 people, that will be that is prescribed as a almost traditional rule for completing a pilgrimage. Pilgrimage becomes really completed if he does this. So I told Thakur about it, that I have brought 12 sets of necessary things and I wish to give them to the sadhus who are going towards Ganga Sagar. Thakur told him, where you will get better sadhus than these boys were not sannyasis. Would be sannyasis, future sannyasis, they are just boys. But Thakur told him, where you will get better than them? So he gave it to Thakur itself, those 12 sets. And Thakur gave 10 to young devotees, 11 to Gopalda himself, and one he kept separately. Later on he gave it to Girish Ghosh. So that is one set of 12. Here we will see who served Thakur. So different names list will come. Finally we will get 16 or 17 of them. So here now those who served Thakur are mentioned. Narendra, Rakhal, Baburam, Niranjan, Yogindra, Latu, Tarak, Brother Gopal, Kali Swami Abhedananda, Shashi, Swami Ramakrishna Leelaprasanga, Sharat, Swami Saradananda, and Hutko Gopal. Now he did not become a sadhu later on, and we do not know where it went. Hutko means suddenly he would come and suddenly he would go. But he was among them who were serving Thakur in Kashipur. Hutko is abruptly appearing Gopal. That is a different Gopal. This is a boy Gopal, and who was called Hutko. These are 12. Now, Sarada, that is Sarada Prasanna, Swami Trigunatītānanda. Sarada could stay for a day or two only from time to time, owing to hard pressure from his father. Harish came for a few days and went back home, and his brain got deranged there. The house people did so many kriyas on him so that he should not become a sadhu. And as a result, he became mad. Later on, Holy Mother corrected him. Hari, Tulasi and Gangadhar, three names are together mentioned. Hari is Swami Turiyananda, Tulasi is Swami Nirmalananda, and Gangadhar is Swami Akhandananda. Now, you know something happened later on, and they unluckily, for whatever reason, removed the name of Nirmalananda from the list of Thakur's disciples. And we count 16. But they could not touch Leelaprasanga. And that is why here we find him mentioned. And his name was Datta. And he was dear to Swami Saradananda. And so long as Swami Saradananda was there, he was there. Later on something happened and he went out or whatever happened. And many of our centers, Bangalore was founded by him. Trivandrum, originally at that time, was founded by him, and several centers in Kerala. So we have to acknowledge that fact because Saradan Swamiji has mentioned it there. And so Hari, Tulasi and Gangadhar practiced tapas at home and came there at intervals. Besides these 12, now 12 already mentioned, and these are additionals. Two others joined with Mahimanacharan Chakravarti shortly afterwards and lived in his house. The names are not given and we do not know who are they because names have not been mentioned and we do not know what happened to them in future also. So we can count 12 minus, no, let us count. Narendra, Rakhal, Baburam, Niranjan, Yogin, Latu, Tarak, Buddha Gopal, Kali, Sharad, Shashi, so 11. Because that Hutko Gopal went away. So these are 11. Then Sarada Prasanna, 12. Harish, not there. Hari, Tulsi and Gangadhar. So this makes 15. Yes. Because Vivekananda came very late. He was in service. He was actually studying in those days. And we left. That makes it 16. Anyway, can anybody remember one more name? When it comes, he shall tell you. 11, Sarada, Hari Tulsi Gangadhar, and Vivekananda later on. Can we remember anyone else? Okay. So, in order to satisfy the curiosity of the reader, names of those 12 are given below. So, that 12 includes Hutko Gopal. Slight improvement in the master's health. One day the master came downstairs a few days after he had come to Kashipur and strolled for a short time along the garden paths round the house. The devotees were happy to see it and hoped that he would soon be strong and regain his health. If only he could do so every day. But he felt weak the following day, either on account of his catching a chill owing to the contact with the cold air outside or for some other reasons, and could not take a stroll for some time to come. The chill, of course, passed away in 2 or 3 days, but his weakness continued. The doctors therefore prescribed for him decoction of kid meat. When he took it, that weakness decreased to a great extent in a few days and he felt healthier than before. His health seemed thus improved for about a fortnight since he came there. One day, Dr. Mahendralal also came at this home. So he was not coming there daily as in Shampukur. Somebody had to go and report to him and he would give medicines. One day, Dr. Mahendralal also came at this time to see him and was glad to notice the change. The young attendants had to go to Calcutta every day to tell the doctor about the master's health and bring meat for his diet. Both of these duties were left at first in charge of one man going to Calcutta. That gave rise to great inconvenience. So it was decided that Thenceforth, two persons should go to Calcutta for those two urgent items of work. If there were any other necessity for going to Calcutta, a third man beside them would go. Moreover, the young devotees began to do all the duties by turns, such as keeping clean the house, going daily to Baranagar to make purchases from the market, rendering personal service to the master day and night, and so on. Narendranath engaged himself in superintending every action of theirs and in doing whatever work came up suddenly by chance. So, the leader has two assignments. One is to organize and one is to do. If more work, suddenly some new work came, then he has to do that. So, both a worker and a leader, a working leader. That was Narendranath. All cooking was done by the Holy Mother, aided by Sister Lakshmi, Thakur's niece, and sometimes by other lady devotees of Calcutta when they came to visit him. The Holy Mother, however, was in charge of preparing the master's diet as before. When any special food was prescribed for the master, the details of the method of preparing it were learned from the doctor. And one or two devotees, like Brother Gopal, old man, with whom she did not observe parda, veiling one's face. Veil, this is called parda here. And spoke freely, would go and explain to her the method of cooking it. Besides preparing the diet, the Holy Mother personally used to carry the food to the master twice daily. Once a little before midday and the second time shortly after sunset. So night food was not delayed there, shortly after sunset. She would be waiting in the room till the master finished his meal. When she took back the cups and plates, Lakshmi Devi, the niece of the master, was brought to Kashipur. She was brought to help the Holy Mother in cooking and other work and keep her company, because all were other men. Over and above that, some of those women devotees who visited the master often at Dakshineshwar came here at intervals and stayed with the Holy Mother for a few hours and sometimes for a day or two. Thus, in a week, everything was running smoothly. The lay disciples met twice a month at Ram's or Girisha's house to discuss financial matters. The householder devotees also were not free from anxiety at that time. They gathered together either in Ram's or Girisha's house to decide the maximum service, personal or pecuniary, they could render to their beloved master. Some personal service also they could. They knew that they could not spare the same time or amount of money every month. Each one of them cannot spare the same amount of money. Hence, they had to meet once or twice a month to take decisions beforehand. This time who will give how much, this time who will give how much, that was the arrangement. Narendra inspired the boy devotees to give up desires and devote themselves entirely to the realization of God. So this is a beautiful incident. Most of the young devotees did not go home even for a short time till everything began to move in an orderly manner. Those who had unavoidably to go returned in a few hours and sent word home somehow that they would not be able to go home regularly and live there as usual till the master had regained his health. It needs no mention that no guardian, when he came to know this, approved of the readily. So anybody becomes a sannyasi, the guardians do not approve readily. But what could the guardians do? The brains of the boys had been spoiled, as they put it. That means their ideal has completely changed. They thought that more harm than good might befall before them if they tried to interfere directly. So they allowed the boys to go their own ways, trying all the time to win them over slowly through indirect pressure and persuasion. I remember a small incident much later, in much respect of much others. There are the Swami Nagpur Shivatattvananda. His father was extremely attached to him. So his parents came and his father was moving in the ashram, catching the end of the shirt. And his mother told father, we can love him as much as we can, but it does not equal to the love which my teacher, Guru, as much as he loves him. That was the reading of the mother. We both together cannot love him as much as that president, that Guruji loves him. So that was the observation, this I remembered. So similarly in those days, same thing. So moving all the time to win them over through indirect pressure and persuasion. When both the classes of the devotees, the householders and the brahmacharis, so now they are named as brahmacharis, joined heartily and with determination in the great vow of service to the master. And everything was free from anxiety and having the time to think about himself, about Naren we are talking now. Because we know the condition of the house, how the relatives became enemies and drove him out of the house, and he had to file a suitcase and he was to study for LLB. And his ideal was to complete study, serve for some time, keep money in the house, and then become a sannyasi. But all that was thrown out. And having the time to think about himself, made up his mind to go home soon for a day or two. He made it known to us all at night and went to bed. But he had no sleep. He got up in a short time, seeing Gopal, that Hudka Gopal must be, and one or two others of us, including Saradanji, because described in the first person. And one or two others of us awake, he said, come, let us go and stroll in the garden and have a smoke. He said while walking, the master is suffering from a fell disease. Who can say if he has not made up his mind to give up his body? While there is time yet, let us make as much of spiritual progress as we can by service, meditation, devotional exercises, etc. Otherwise, when he passes away, there will be no limit to our repentance. Postponing, calling on the Lord till desires are fulfilled. So after this, because Naren himself was thinking like that I will study and do this and do this, and after. So he said, this is how we are spoiling our life. This is exactly how our days are passing, and we miss he mainly and others. And we are getting more and more entangled in the net of desires. It is these desires only that lead to destruction and death. So let us give up desires here. Yes, let's give them all up. The boy devotees burn desires in the dhuni fire. So they did it practically. The winter night of the month of Paush was drowsing in utter silence. Night. Winter night. The infinite blue above. December we saw that. The infinite blue above was looking steadfastly at the earth with 100,000 starry eyes. It's poetic, Sardu Swamiji's. Below, the ground under the garden trees was now dry on account of the powerful rays of the sun and well cleaned and fit to sit on. Narendra's mind inclined to dispassion and detachment and accustomed to meditation, felt as it were within it that external silence he felt within and was merging in itself. The mind was going to the self. Instead of walking anymore, he sat down under a tree. Shortly afterwards, he saw a dry heap of grass and broken branches of trees and said, "Set fire to it." Holy men light dhunis under trees at this time. Let us also light a dhuni and burn up our desires within. So symbolic Virja home they did. A fire was lighted. We pulled along similar heaps of dry fuel lying on all sides and offered them as oblation to that fire, thinking all the while that we were offering the desires of our minds as oblations and felt a wonderful bliss. Giving up desires is a great bliss. We felt it as if all the worldly desires were burnt up and our minds became pure and serene and we were approaching God. That is the whole purpose of what is called Virja. We thought, why did we not do this before? It has given us so much bliss. We then resolved to light such dhunis whenever opportunity should occur. When 2 or 3 hours elapsed in that way in the night and no more fuel could be found, we extinguished the fire, returned to our places and went to bed again. It was then past 4 in the morning. Those who could not join us in lighting the dhuni felt sorry when they woke up at daybreak and heard of it. They were grieved at not being called. Narendra said by way of consolation to them, "We did not do it according to plan and did not know that we would have such joy. We shall gather together from now on and light a dhuni whenever we find time. We need not worry on that account." Narendra went away to Calcutta in the morning, as settled before, and returned to Kashipur in a day with a few law books in his hand. So he will study only when he gets time in Kashipur, which is not going to get at all. So we go to section 3, chapter 13, actually appendix, third appendix. And this is the description of what is called Kalpatarude by Ramchandra Datta, and Saradananda Swamiji gives a different name. But we know all of that Kalpatarude has become the name. Saradananda Swamiji says, the master's self-revelation. He showed everybody, I am God. And the bestowal of freedom from fear. So those who love him need not fear. So these two things, Atma Prakashe Avaya Pradhan. By revealing who he is giving fearlessness to everybody. Do not be anxious. The master felt a little better under Dr. Rajendra's treatment. So a shift in treatment. Dr. Rajendra is one in whose company Mahendra Sarkar became homeopath from allopath. So he is almost like his mentor or guru in homeopathy. We already told the reader how one day the master came out of his room and walked in the garden for a short time. Feeling weak on account of it, he did not venture to do so again for about a fortnight. Although there was no change of treatment during that period with homeopathy, there was a change of doctor. Rajendranath Datta, born in the family of the rich and famous Akrur Datta of Bahubazar, Calcutta, labored hard and spent much money over a vast and deep study of homeopathy and its propagation in the city. We know Calcutta is the center of homeopathy in India. Now big institutes in Hyderabad also. The famous Dr. Mahendranath Sarkar met him and became convinced of the efficacy and efficiency of homeopathy and adopted that method in his profession. Rajendra Babu had heard from people of the illness of the master. He knew that if his motive is being told, Mahendranath was doing by love and he was called. He knew that if he could cure him, the reputation of homeopathy would be established with many because impossible case has been cured. So he selected a medicine after much study and thought. He was acquainted with Atul, the younger brother of Girish. He, as far as we remember, met Atul somewhere at this time and asked him about the master's illness. He then expressed his intention of treating the master and said, please tell Mahendra that I have selected a medicine after much thinking. I hope to get good results with it. I like to try it once if he is agreeable. Mahendra is agreeable. Atul reported this to the devotees and to Dr. Mahendra Sarkar, and as no one had any objection to it, because the Rajendra Babu is a better doctor, Rajendra Babu came to visit the master in a few days, listened to the description of the disease from the beginning, and administered Lycopodium 200. The medicine is mentioned because that relieved him for some time. The master derived much benefit from it for more than a fortnight. The devotees thought he would perhaps soon become strong and healthy as before. The master's self-revelation and blessings to his disciples. So this became better and strong only to do this last work, after which he became exhausted again. Half of the month of Posh passed away, and it was the first day of January 1886. These solar months are roughly from the middle of English months to the next middle. So half of passed away, and it was the first day of January 1886. As the master felt rather well that day, he expressed a desire to come out of his room and have a walk in the garden for some time. It was a holiday because New Year's Day. And because, let us read, and the householder devotees came one by one and in groups shortly after midday. Now this is, all our religious festivals are celebrated by tithis. But this particular thing is celebrated by day. Simply because of it was New Year, so they had holiday, and so the householders had come. So in the remembrance of that, it is celebrated every year on 1st January. Thus, when the master came downstairs at 3 in the afternoon, more than 30 people were engaged in conversation in the garden under the trees or inside the house. Master came out, so they were talking to each other. 30, not the sannyasis. As soon as they saw him, all got up out of reverence and bowed down to him. He came down to the garden path through the western door of the hall on the ground floor and was slowly proceeding southward to the gate when all followed him at a little distance. When he came to the middle of the path leading to the gate, he saw Girish, Ram, and a few others sitting under the trees to the west of the path. They also saw him and saluted him from there and came joyfully to him. The master addressed Girish all of a sudden, before anybody had spoken a word, and said, Girish, you I find say to one and all, everywhere, so many things about me. In the bracket is mentioned that I am the incarnation of God. What have you seen and understood about me that you do so? Girish remained completely unmoved because suddenly he was asked, what do you see? And kneeling down on the ground near the master's feet, said in a choked voice with his hands folded and face turned upward, What more can I say of him whose greatness Vyasa and Valmiki could not find words to express? Vyasa, Mahabharata, describing Krishna, and Valmiki, the ancient sage, describing Rama. And they could not find proper expression to describe it because the Lord is infinite. How I can find more than them? They are great sages. The master was charmed at this fervent utterance of the devoted Giri. So Girish's faith brought out master's divinity and blessed all the devotees assembled there through their representative Girish. Through Girish is blessing everybody. What more shall I say to you? May you all be blessed with this spiritual awakening. Now this is impossible to translate. তোমাদের আর কি বলবো চৈতন্য হোক তোমাদের চৈতন্য হোক চৈতন্য হোক means let the consciousness be awakened in you. Let God the consciousness be awakened in you. That could be the meaning. So here it is said, may you all be blessed with the spiritual awakening. That impossible to translate. I find, may God, the consciousness in you, be awakened. May God, who is the consciousness in you, be awakened. Beside himself with love and compassion for the devotees, out of love and compassion for the devotees, he says, hardly had he said those few words when he entered into Bhavasamadhi. Those words, that means almost simultaneously. He was going to Bhavasamadhi and he uttered these words and went into Samadhi. Those words of profound blessing, untouched by the slightest tinge of selfishness, directly entered the devotees' hearts, where they raised high billows of bliss inside. They forgot time and space, forgot the disease of the master, and forgot their previous determination not to touch him till he recovered. So all that is blown away by the blessing. And were aware only that out of sympathy for them in their plight, an extraordinary divine being, feeling excruciating pain at their misery, and his heart overflowing with compassion, had come down to them from heaven and called them affectionately to him for giving protection. Like a mother sheltering her children against all ills by covering them lovingly with the upper part of her sari. Then they became eager to bow down to him and take the dust of his feet. And filling the quarters with cries of victory to Ramakrishna, began saluting him one after the another. So first general blessing and then to each one of them. As they were thus bowing down to him, the sea of the master's compassion transcended all bounds and brought about a wonderful phenomenon. We had almost daily seen, Saradananda Swamiji is telling this is not new, we had almost daily seen blessing to one or two, but here it was in a group. We had almost daily seen the master at Dakshineshwar losing himself in grace and compassion for certain devotees and blessing them by the extraordinary potent touch in the state of divine semi-consciousness. He began touching each of the devotees assembled on that day in that divine mood. The joy of the devotees, it is superfluous to say, knew no bounds at that act of the master. They felt that he would not henceforward keep concealed the fact of his divinity, either from them or from anybody else, because in front of everybody is doing that in the world. And knowing as they did, nevertheless, their own defects, spiritual destination and incapability. So they knew that how much they can reach spiritually. Their defects and incapability to rise much higher. Oh, it is the same section. Spiritual destination. Destitution, I wrongly read it. Now it is clear. Their own defects, spiritual destitution. That means incapacity to reach more height and incapability. They had not the slightest doubt that all alike, the sinner as well as the afflicted, would find a refuge at his feet, a touch of which dispelled all fear forever. Unable to utter a single word owing to that wonderful occurrence, some were only looking steadfastly at him as if they were under the spell of a mantra. Some others called aloud to all within the home to come and that Vaikuntanath Sanya, Sardan Savaj's friend, to come and be blessed by receiving the Master's grace, and still others collected flowers and worshipped him with them, uttering mantras. Soon the ecstasy of the Master came to an end, and the devotees too were again in the normal state of their consciousness, bringing thus to an end his walk in the garden that day. He went into the house and sat down in his room. So walked only for that purpose. He did not go further. Did the master act as the wish fulfilling tree? Is it Kalpataru? He raises the question. Some devotees like Ramchandra have described the happening of that day as the transformation by the master of himself into the wish fulfilling tree Kalpataru. But it is more reasonable, it seems to us, to call it the self-revelation of the master, or the bestowal of freedom from fear on all devotees by revealing himself. The Kalpataru, it is said, gives to all whatever good or bad they ask for, but the master did not do so. He made clear through that event that the fact of his being a God man, Devmana, God as man, and of his bestowal of protection against and freedom from fear on all, without the slightest discrimination, he is mentioning, but he will tell something more. Be that as it may, of all the people that felt blessed by having his grace on that day, Haran Chandra Das is worthy of being particularly mentioned. A previous description of this Vaikuntha was mentioned. We read this description once in Gurva Purvarda. For as soon as he bowed down to him, the master in ecstasy placed his lotus feet on Haran's head. So others he is touching by hand. It is only on a few occasions that we saw him bestow his grace in that way. A footnote, Haran Chandra Belia Ghata had a job in the office of Messrs. Findlay Mayer Company. The last few years of his life, he tried to celebrate an annual festival in memory of the grace of the Master bestowed on him on this occasion. Separately, Ramlal Chattopadhyay, Thakur's nephew, was present there on that occasion and also received the Master's grace. Asked about it, he said, I could formerly see a part only of holy person of my chosen ideal with my mind's eye at the time of meditation. When I saw the lotus feet, I could not see the face. Again, perhaps I saw the person from the face to the west, but could not see the holy feet. And whatever I saw never seemed to be alive. But no sooner had the master touched me that day than the form of my chosen ideal appeared suddenly from head to foot in the lotus of my heart and moved and looked benign and effulgent. So, the meaning here is that everybody could reach the height which his whole life would take to reach. So, differently. Who were present during this self revelation? We remember the names of 9 or 10 only of the persons who were present on the spot during these days' occurrence. They are Girish, Atul, Ram, Navagopal, Harmohan, Vaikuntha, Kishori Rai, Kishori, Master's Mahendranath's brother also is Kishori, and his brother-in-law also is Kishori. So the surname is given Kishori Rai, that means his brother-in-law. Haran, Ramlal, and Akshay. Akshay is that who has written Kunti, Akshay Kumar Sen. Mahendranath, the writer of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, was also perhaps present. But it is a matter for wonder that none of the sannyasi devotees of the Master was present there that day. Narendranath and many others of them had been engaged in sadhana beside the Master's service, etc., in the previous night for long hours, and feeling tired, they were sleeping within the house. Afternoon. Although Latu and Sharat were away and saw what was taking, Latu had actually brought the Master down and saw what was taking place from the roof of the first floor to the south of the Master's room. They refrained voluntarily from going there. For as soon as the Master went downstairs to have a walk in the garden, they put his bedding, etc., in the sun and were cleaning the room. So they were engaged in service. And why they did not come for such a big thing? They said that Master is our own. Whenever we want, we will get it. We need not go as a special. Thinking that it might cause inconvenience to the Master, because only when he comes out of the room, they can do this thing. If they left their duty half finished, they did not feel inclined to go there. The description is from Vaikuntanath only here. Okay. So we have found Harmohan, we have found that Haran Chandra and Ramlal. And now greater description of Vaikuntha on there. Vaikuntha Nath pestered the Master for having spiritual experiences. So during that time he made a special prayer. We asked a few others, including Vaikuntanath, about their experience on that day. We shall bring this subject to a close by recording what Vaikuntha had told us. Vaikuntha met the Master at about the same time as we did. We have already mentioned something of how the Master gave him instruction and molded his life since then. The Master rendered his life full of bliss by initiating him in a mantra. Vaikuntha engaged himself in sadhana since that time and was striving his best that he might have the vision of his chosen ideal. Knowing that he could not succeed in his attempt without the Master's grace, he was from time to time plentifully praying to him for it. Especially when the Master became physically ill and came to Calcutta and then to Kashipur for treatment. During this period also twice or thrice, Vaikuntha got the opportunity of humbly beseeching him for the fulfillment of his heart's desire. This desire is not like other desires. Huh? The Master smiled graciously, solaced him and said, "Why don't you wait? Let the disease of the body be cured a little and I shall do everything for you." How he felt at the touch of the Master. Vaikuntha was present on the spot of this day's occurrence. As soon as the Master had blessed 2 or 3 of the devotees by extraordinary powerful touch, Vaikuntha came before him, bowed down to him with devotion and said, "Sir, please bestow your grace on me." The master said, but you have been given everything. When you say, said Vaikuntha, everything has been given, it is certainly so, but kindly do so that I can understand it more or less. Saying, so be it, the master touched his chest only for a moment in an ordinary way. But, said Vaikuntha, as the result of it, a great revolution took place in my mind. I saw the figure of the master lit up with a gracious smile in the sky, in the houses, trees, plants, men, and in whatever else I looked. I did not know how to contain my delight within myself, and seeing then you too on the roof, I called aloud saying, "O you all, wherever you may be, come without delay." That mental attitude and vision of mine continued for some days. Throughout my waking state, I became amazed and charmed with the holy vision of the Master in all things. It continued to be so wherever I went to office or elsewhere on my business. So he could not contain that. Without due preparation, high spiritual experiences cannot be retained. I could not attend to the work on hand, and it suffered. I tried to forget that vision for some time when I found that work was suffering, but failed. I then understood a little of why Arjuna felt afraid to see the universal form of the Divine Lord and prayed to him to withdraw it. Remembering the statement of the scriptures that liberated souls always remain in the same elevated state, I could then but catch a glimpse of the extent of desirelessness the mind has to develop to have the capacity to remain in that high state. For hardly had a few days passed when I felt it difficult to live in the same mental attitude and with the same vision. Sometimes it occurred to me, am I going mad? I then prayed to the Master again without fear. Oh Lord, I am not able to contain this mental state. Please ordain that it may come to an end. I now think, woe be to human weakness and stupidity. Why did I pray so? Why did I not keep my faith firm in Him? And why did I not wait patiently to see its ultimate development? I might at most have become mad, or the body might have dropped off. But as soon as I prayed in that manner, the said vision and mental state came to an end one day. My firm conviction is that they were removed by the same extraordinary being from whom I had got them. But he preserved compassionately a small part of it, perhaps because there arose no prayer in my mind for its complete removal. I felt blessed and amazed at the sudden appearance of this vision a few times daily, not continuously, but a few times daily. The vision of the gracious figure of the Master made effulgent by the divine mood. So we have come to an end. Certain things we will see here, chronology, this is not the proper place for it. We shall read it when we come to that proper place according to the Bengali original. And after that, um, astrological statement about Master's time of birth, that also belongs to some other world. And we, in English, they have been brought to the end. So we'll see them when their occasion comes. So the book and its author. So we have come to the end of that fifth part, the Master in Divine Mood and Narendranath. And from tomorrow, we hope to start Sadhak Bhav, one of the most important parts of Leelaprasanga, most important, I would say. And so, from tomorrow, we come to Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, second part. The first is about childhood, that we'll take up last. And so we take up that sadhak bhav from tomorrow onwards by His grace. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hare Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.